Okay, this is going to be a video on edge repair. I damaged the edge of my 90cm blade when I was mowing with it yesterday. I hit a concrete paver which was loose, and being loose it lifted, and about probably 15 or so centimetres of the blade ran along that paver and it's turned it over. So I'm going to run through the process now. So to start with, this is what I consider to be the essentials for peening. So at the top there we've got the coarse whetstone, then the fine whetstone. There's our new edge repair anvil. It's a nice wide faced anvil. So you can see there it's a lot wider than our standard peening anvil, which is this one. That's our peening anvil. And there's the repair anvil. So it's basically got a curve over both faces. So it curves that way, it curves that way as well. And then a good half round file. So that profile is what I find the best, because that nice little curve on there takes out just about as much as you want to get out of the blade, so there's not a big sharp shoulder. You can use a chainsaw file, but they tend to leave a very sudden dent on the blade, which can later catch something, so it encourages a tear. Now that's our new peening hammer. So it's got the big head is for actually peening, whereas the smaller side is for edge repair. So again, that's basically, it's got a slight curve that way and a slight curve that way, and on that side of the hammer it's a nice curve. It looks quite similar to an anvil actually. And of course our little block, these sanding blocks are fantastic for polishing up the blade. Okay, I'll show you the damage on the blade. So looking along the back of the blade, you can see here it started here, and we've got a curled edge all the way back to about here. So I'll just mark that just so it's easier to see. So we can see there, that's quite a long bit of damage. Now interestingly, there's a few different types of damage there. This one here, it's basically just bent the blade back. There's nothing there like a tear that we need to worry about. We've got a couple of tears there, little one there, right at the end of the fingernail. Another bit of a tear coming in there, and there's quite a sizable tear there. So that little shoulder there is what I'm talking about. You can see how it hooks on the nail. That's the kind of thing, if you strike a hard woody stem now, that could easily grab in there and start actually ripping further in. So this is why you have to get onto these kind of repairs as soon as you can. So basically, as soon as I did this damage, that was it for the morning. There's no more mowing. So with this one we could just file it up a bit and straighten it back on an anvil. But because I'm going to have to take some out to get these tears anyway, I think what I'll do is just pretty much file it all down and then come along and peen it again. Right, so I've got the peening anvil in there at the moment. So I'll put the edge repair anvil in. Now I've got my anvil set up so they're actually on an angle like that. So the bench is going this way, this is the way I'm facing. Set it obliquely, because generally when you swing a hammer, you're swinging from here, so you try to keep it in line with the hammer. The first step is to file up that edge, and this makes a pretty horrid sound. So we're from there through to there. So I'm just going to get on that and start filing that out. Again, I'll take a bit more out here because that's where that shoulder was. So you've got to reduce the point of impact basically. just show you what I've got there now. So I've taken out those chips, so we had one there, and I've taken off the burr that was created along there. I've created a new burr, mind you, but you can see what I've done there. And there's, yeah, that's where it came out. So I've got those two ones are now filed out, so they're not going to cause, they're not going to be a weak spot and create more tearing. But these shoulders here still can. So I might take a little bit more off there. You'll be coming in this way, so it's not such an issue on that side. It's more this side that you've got to worry about when you're striking things. So I'll take up a little bit more, and then we'll have a go at painting. Okay, so you can see now I've got less of a shoulder here and here. It's more of a gentle approach into the curve, and there as well. And the idea now is to peen in from the meat of the blade here and draw some edge out. Now we're not going to try and get it to be completely uniform. We're not trying to bring it out flat, because if we do that, the steel at the edge will be very, very thin, and it's just going to tear again. So we're just trying to make it more uniform, but not completely uniform. And with these falsy blades, these edges are already very thin. I'll show you the thumbnail test in a minute. And yeah, you don't want to thin them out too much, or they're just going to go again. Okay, so the first step on peening is always to clean up the edge a bit. So we clean off any of this gunk. So basically anything here has the potential to damage your blade further, because you're actually bashing it into the metal once you start peening it. So any build up from the sap of the plants, or any little bits of rust, won't behave like the metal. And as you hit it with a hammer, you're actually they're each like little individual anvils, I guess, so they're creating thinner spots as well. So that's the idea of cleaning up the blade, just to make it an even impact. Also, it makes a massive difference to your accuracy, because you can see it much better. So you can see that now. Now it's nice and shiny there on the top side, and we're going for the same on the bottom side. So again, it's not so obvious on that side, but you can see it's made a difference there. And what this block does, it actually it cleans off the blade, but it also gives it a very matte finish. And when you strike with the hammer, it makes a very glossy area, so you can actually see where you've hit. I'll just run through these hammers as well. So this is one that I bought from a hardware store, and it actually looked pretty good on the shelf. But when I got home and put a straight edge on it, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show this to you or not with the camera, there's actually a slight gap. So the surface there is slightly concave. So the edge is up here, and then it goes down low and then comes back up again on a very small scale, obviously. So what that means is, when you're doing what you think is an accurate blow there, you're actually more likely to be hitting on the outside of the hammer rather than the centre. So something like that's going to be no good to you for peening. This is an old panel beater's hammer, which is what I used to use before I got this one just recently, which is fine actually. There's no problem with that. You've just got to keep it polished up, just along with the blades and the anvil itself. If it has any rust, you should be keeping that nice and clean and shiny as well. The back of it was damaged well before I got it, but that would have been okay for doing edge repair. You'd have to be careful with it because it's quite fine, but that's another option, a hammer like that. As far as the anvil goes, I mean, you can of course get something like a maul, which when you look at it straight on has that similar kind of shape. It's not so nicely shaped that way, and this one isn't actually centered very well at all. I don't know if you can see that. It's not quite symmetrical. But yeah, you could drive that into a log, use the back of a maul, that would be fine as well. It would need to be cleaned up quite a bit. This is rusty, it's almost like carbuncles on it, or barnacles, just a build up of rust, so it would need to be smoothed out. You might want to put an angle grinder over it to get the rust off, and then start smoothing it down with a block or a file to start with, just to get something similar to that kind of finish, because you don't want any irregularities in the thing you're peening on, because you're just going to end up denting the blade. Now this anvil is still loose. I've only just put that in and swapped the other one over. Now you never hit the anvil direct with just the hammer. You'll end up denting probably both. You're not going to score them at all. So just get a block of wood, preferably a smoother one than this, but this is what I've got, just to get it solid. Started. Oh, now we're at a bit of a funny angle here. The camera's actually in my pocket, so I'm not sure how this is going to work, but this is what we're trying to do. We've got this little half round mark in there, so we're basically trying to mirror that by coming in a little bit and working on a half round with the hammer around there. And this is actually the first time I've ever used this hammer, so this is going to be interesting. I'm not used to it at all. It's quite a different feel to the one I'm used to, because the point of impact is much lower. So I'm just going to start very gently. Now when you hear that rattle, like the dong, that means you haven't got the blade flat, so I'm going to lift it up a little bit. That's much better. You hear the difference in the sound there from this, the hollow sound, to the sharp tap. That's how you want it. Now I don't know if you can see there, but my points of impact there have ranged from there to there, which is pretty average actually. So I'm going to have to work on that. I'm going to just do some little taps to start with, just to find out where I'm actually hitting, because it takes you a while to get used to a different hammer if you don't know where you're going to be hitting at all. Now I'm also drawing the hammer back, so I'm not just hitting straight down. I don't know if you can tell or not, I'm actually more of that action, because what we're actually doing here is trying to physically draw the steel into this hole, just to fill it out a little bit. Again, I'm not overly thrilled with how that's going. I am starting to get used to the hammer, but that's not brilliant. But I haven't actually been hitting it very hard at the moment, so it's not really doing much. I don't know if you can see all the burr or buff marks there where I've hit it. So now I'll actually rub that up again with the hand block, and I can start again as far as having a look at where I'm going.